Have you ever been watching a movie or maybe like the news or even just chatting with someone in English and like all the words are there, but you just can't quite grasp the meaning?
Yeah, definitely. I know that feeling.
It's almost as if there's this hidden code to understanding native speakers.
Exactly. It's like a secret language.
And well, that's precisely what we're going to dive into today.
Exactly. And to be clear, it's really common.
Yeah.
It's not just a lot of people feel this way. It's that sensation that native speakers are talking at warp speed and it's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
So what we're aiming to do in this deep dive is to equip you with some really practical tools and techniques to help you sharpen your listening comprehension skills.
Yeah. And like we're not just going back to like basic grammar rules here.
Yeah, not at all.
We're going beyond that.
It's about training your ear
Yeah.
to really attune to the subtleties of spoken English.
Like going beyond just reading the notes on a page to actually hearing the music.
Absolutely, a perfect analogy.
And we've got some seriously interesting stuff to uncover.
You do.
We're going to be looking at this thing called the whisper technique.
Yeah,
It's this trick that interpreters use.
that's right.
And we're going to break down other strategies that can make a real difference in your confidence when you're listening to English.
That's right.
So it's not about just passively waiting for your understanding to improve. It's about actively engaging and building those listening muscles.
Absolutely making it a habit.
Yeah. So we'll start by looking at some of the core reasons why native speakers can be so tricky to understand.
Okay, sounds good.
Then we'll get into that intriguing whisper technique.
Yeah.
And then we'll explore how to decode real speed speech. We've even got a structured 7-day listening gym plan
Fantastic.
to help you really put these techniques into practice.
All right.
And for those moments when you feel totally lost mid-conversation,
Yeah, we all have them.
we've got a handy emergency hack. So if you're ready to move beyond textbooks and confidently grasps spoken English, you are in the right place.
You are.
So let's get started. What are some of the main reasons why understanding native speakers can be such a challenge?
So one of the main culprits is the way words actually sound in natural speech. And the first thing to consider is this idea of linked speech.
Okay. Link speech.
Let's take a very common phrase like want to.
Okay.
Now, you probably learn those as two distinct words.
Right.
But in natural conversation, native speakers often connect them.
Okay.
So it sounds more like wanna.
Wanna.
Exactly. And it's these connected sounds where the end of one word kind of bleeds into the beginning of the next
Right.
that can make it difficult to pick out those individual words when someone's speaking.
It's like looking at a string of lights, when they're all lit up and maybe even overlapping a bit, it's harder to see the space between each one.
I like that analogy. That's a good one.
And another thing I've definitely noticed is how some sounds seem to just vanish, like they disappear.
The ghost syllables.
Yes, our sources call this ghost syllables.
Precisely.
That's the deal with that.
Well, ghost syllables are basically syllables within words that get really weak or even seem to disappear in natural pronunciation.
Okay.
A classic example is the word family. When you first learn it, you might pronounce it very clearly with 3 parts, family.
Right.
However, a native speaker is more likely to say family, almost completely dropping that middle vowel.
Wow. Yeah.
So these softened or omitted syllables can make familiar words sound different,
really different.
which obviously can lead to confusion.
Absolutely. And it's subtle, but it makes a huge difference.
It does.
It's like the language is finding shortcuts when spoken quickly.
Streamlining itself for efficiency.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's not just the sounds right.
No, it's not.
It's the meaning behind them as well.
Absolutely.
Like the cultural context.
That's right. The third key factor is what we call cultural references. English, like any language, has tons of idiom slang expressions that don't have a literal meaning.
Right, right.
Take, for instance, the saying, "That's how the cookie crumbles."
Okay.
If you analyze each word separately, it doesn't actually tell you the real meaning.
Yeah, it's not about cookies at all.
No, it's more about accepting that things don't always go your way.
Or that life can be unfair sometimes.
Exactly, and understanding these expressions requires you to understand the culture,
Right, the shared understanding.
which can be really tough if you're not immersed in that culture.
So we've got the sounds blending together, the dropped sounds, and then this whole other layer of implied meaning.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle.
It can feel that way.
So with all of these factors at play, what's like the most crucial thing to remember when trying to improve your understanding?
The key, and this is huge, is that you don't need to understand every single word.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in fact, trying to do that can actually make things more confusing.
Okay.
Instead, try to focus on what our sources call the bones.
The bones.
The essential information within the sentence.
Right.
If you can pick out the main subject, the verb, the key objects,
Right.
you can usually figure out the general meaning, even if you miss some smaller words or details.
Like focusing on the main plot points of a story without getting bogged down in all the subplots.
Precisely.
Okay, that's reassuring, actually.
It should be.
Instead of feeling overwhelmed by every detail, focus on the core message.
Exactly.
Now let's get to this whisper technique.
All right.
This technique used by interpreters.
Yes. Fascinating stuff.
Sounds pretty secretive.
It does a bit like a secret weapon.
So tell us more. What makes it so special?
Well, what's really cool about it is that it gets your body involved in the process of listening.
Okay.
It's not just about passively hearing the words.
Right.
It's about physically connecting to the rhythm and the flow of the language.
So it's active listening taken to another level.
You could say that.
Okay, so how do we actually do this?
It's a 3-step process. First, you pick a short clip from a TV show or a movie.
How short are we talking?
I'd say about 30 seconds to a minute is a good start.
Okay.
Our sources recommend sitcoms like Friends or The Office.
Good choices. Yeah.
Because the dialogue is generally clear and easy to follow.
Right.
And for your first listen, just play the clip at normal speed.
Okay.
Just try to get a general sense of what's going on in the scene. Don't worry about understanding every word at this point.
Okay, so first listen is just getting the big picture.
Exactly.
What about the second listen?
For the second listen, if you can slow down the playback speed a bit,
Okay, how much slower?
maybe to around 0.75x.
All right.
This slower pace can make it easier to hear those instances of linked speech we talked about.
Okay.
Really listen for how words flow into each other and try to mentally separate them.
Like watching a dance in slow motion so you can see each step.
Exactly.
And then the third listen. This is where the whispering comes in. Right?
That's right. So play the clip again either at normal speed or that slightly slower speed if you prefer.
Mm-hmm.
And this time, actively whisper along with the actors.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the key is to synchronize your whispering with their speech.
Okay.
Pay attention to their mouth movements, their intonation.
So it's not just repeating the words?
No, it's about engaging the muscles you use to speak.
Right.
This helps you internalize those sounds and rhythms.
Using speaking to improve listening, that's pretty neat.
It is.
Our sources even give a fun little example with Ross's famous line from Friends. We were on a break.
A classic.
Let's try it now. Imagine Ross saying it. Whisper along with me. We were on a break.
We were on a break.
See how were and on kind of blend together?
They do. It's a perfect illustration of how this technique can bring those subtle connections to light.
So to recap the whisper technique first, get the context, second, listen for linking at a slower speed, and third, whisper along.
That's it.
It seems like such an engaging way to practice. So what about when people talk really fast or mumble? How do we handle that?
That's where we move into real speed decoding.
Okay, real speed decoding.
Native speakers use a lot of contractions and informal pronunciations.
Right.
It can sound like a different language sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Our sources give a great example. I'm grab a cup of coffee.
I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee.
If you're not used to those shortenings, it can be confusing.
Yeah, it looks like a jumble of letters.
It does.
So what's actually being said there?
Well, I'm cuppa is a really common contraction of I'm going to, it's very casual and relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
And then cuppa is short for cup of.
Got it.
So the whole phrase really means I'm going to get a cup of coffee.
Okay, so it's like verbal shorthand.
Exactly.
So how can we get better at understanding these rapid contractions?
It comes down to active repetition and focused attention.
Oh.
When you hear a shortened phrase like I'm ma or cuppa, don't just let it pass by.
Right.
Rewind and listen to it again a few times.
Mhm.
Then try to repeat it out loud yourself, matching the pronunciation.
So train both your mouth and your ears.
Exactly. You get your brain used to those informal sounds and their meanings.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does.
And speaking of training, our sources recommend this 7-day listening gym.
Oh, yes. A great plan.
Tell us about this workout for our ears.
It's all about making practice a regular thing.
Okay.
For the first 3 days, focus on using the whisper technique with animated shows.
Okay, cartoons?
And why cartoons?
Because the speech in animated shows tends to be very clear,
Right.
well enunciated, and often a little slower than in live action shows.
So it's good for beginners.
It's a perfect starting point to get comfy with the whisper technique.
So the first half of the week is cartoon whispering.
You got it.
Sounds fun.
It can be.
What about the rest of the week?
Days 4 through 7, you switch to reality TV.
Okay, reality TV.
Which is great because it's much more unscripted.
Right.
You'll hear more slang, more linked speech, more of those reduced sounds. So it's more like real-life conversations.
Exactly. And while it might be harder than cartoons, it's really beneficial for your comprehension skills.
A good way to step up the challenge.
That's right.
And our sources mentioned a helpful tool for this listening gym.
They did.
What is it?
It's called Language Reactor.
Okay.
It's a free extension for the Chrome browser.
Right.
And it lets you watch videos online with interactive subtitles.
Oh, cool.
You can turn them on and off as you like.
Handy.
Yeah, so you can listen without subtitles, then turn them on to check your understanding.
Oh, that's smart.
And you can even click on words to get instant definitions.
So you're really reinforcing your learning.
Exactly.
Identifying any weak spots.
That's the idea.
So the 7-day listening gem gives you structure, starts with easier content, and then moves to more challenging real-world stuff.
Yeah, it's a good progression.
With a tool to track your progress.
Precisely.
Now, what about those times when you're in a conversation and you completely blank on what someone said?
Oh, yeah, those moments.
It's like your brain just freezes.
I know exactly what you mean.
Do we have any tricks for those awkward situations?
We do. It happens to all of us.
Even native speakers.
Even native speakers sometimes miss things.
Okay.
The key is to have a strategy.
A plan.
To buy yourself some time to understand.
Right.
And encourage the speaker to clarify.
Okay.
So the first step in this emergency hack is to just repeat the last word or phrase you did understand.
Okay.
For example, if someone says a long, complicated sentence, and all you catch is like, tomorrow,
Okay.
you can simply say, tomorrow.
Right.
And that signals to the speaker that you need them to rephrase.
It's a subtle way of saying, I didn't get that,
Exactly.
without being too direct.
Precisely.
What's the next step?
Follow up with a clarifying question.
Like what?
Something simple like, you mean?
Okay.
This encourages them to explain it differently,
Right.
and often they'll naturally simplify their language or add more context.
You're more likely to understand the second time around. That's right. So echo a key word and then ask, you mean.
Exactly.
Simple but effective.
It is.
It's a way to keep the conversation flowing without feeling embarrassed.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From why native speakers can be tough to understand to the whisper technique, to real speed decoding to the 7-day listening gym.
It's been a comprehensive deep dive.
And that emergency hack.
Can't forget that.
So I think our listeners are well on their way to becoming native speech detectives.
I agree. They have all the tools they need.
The key is to actually use these techniques.
That's right.
Experiment with the whisper technique, pay attention to those fast contractions, and don't be afraid to use that emergency hack.
Exactly.
And as you start putting these tools into practice, take a moment to recognize your own progress.
Yeah, that's important.
What are those moments where you think, oh, I finally got that?
Celebrate those victories.
What are you hearing now that you might have missed before?
It's all about raising your awareness.
And it makes you think, doesn't it, about how we communicate in our own native languages.
It does.
All the shortcuts, the shared understandings we often take for granted.
It's fascinating.
Maybe by becoming more aware of these things in English,
Yeah,
we can gain a deeper appreciation for language itself.
absolutely.
Thanks for joining us today for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.